Hi there, and welcome to my channel where I'm hoping to give healthy hair tips on a weekly basis. We'll see if I can keep up. This first one we're going to talk about is cold capping. It's the worst day in a hairstylist's life when a client comes in and tells her she's got cancer and will be going through chemo, and knowing that they're going to be losing their hair, and we're supposed to be the hair experts on how to help them, and we just don't know what to do. Is there anything that we can do to help? Maybe there is. I'm a cancer survivor myself, and so is my daughter, and so we really understand what it's like to go through the treatments, lose your hair, not feel well, all the things that come with it. And so I wanted to take the time to make a video that gives people a little bit of hope. Cold cap therapy has been something that's quite common in Europe, and up until now wasn't real popular in the US, but thanks to an organization called the Rapunzel Project, it's been getting more and more noticed here in the US and being used more and more often. Here's how it works. A patient uses a cap on their head that's chilled, or it can think of it as an ice cap. It's a cap that holds chilled blocks, and it keeps the scalp cool during the chemo transfusion. And the thought process behind it is the cold of the cap will dilute the chemo and keep it from reaching the hair follicles. Chemo is designed to blast out all cells, good, healthy, bad, and otherwise, while it's trying to kill the cancer at the same time. But what the cold capping does is it kind of helps the chemo retract from the hair follicles or the scalp and helps save the hair in many cases. The cap is usually worn about 20 minutes before chemo begins, and then traded out with a fresh cap as the ice or whatever cold filler that is being used starts to get warmed up, because we want to keep a constant cold temperature. So usually there's 2 or 3 caps used during a sitting. I know when I got chemo, it took about 30 minutes for the full transfusion. So in that case, I would have worn the cap, 20 to 30 minutes before we started, 20 to 30 minutes during the chemo, and then sometimes they actually have you wear it up to a couple of hours after the chemo to just make sure that it's continuing to work as the chemo goes through your bloodstream. Now, since I went through chemo, I did not do the cold capping, and I found that my short-term memory is very bad. I can't remember numbers anymore. I can't remember what I've just read. I mean, I can remember the gist of it, but not word for word. So there's a little bit of my script I'm going to read directly because I want to make sure I get the people's names right. So forgive me as I'm looking down during this time right now. So according to the Rapunzel Project co-founder Nancy Marshall, who is also a cancer survivor, the science behind the cap is straightforward. Chemotherapy attacks the body's fastest growing cells, and along with the cancer cells, the hair follicles are also killed, which leads to hair loss. The cap constricts the blood vessels in the scalp, drastically reducing the rate at which the chemo drugs reach the follicles. It's admittedly cold and uncomfortable, but the results are heartwarming. Up to 90% of cold cap therapy patients keep their hair. When Deborah Neal Baker, Chief Energy Officer of Neal, a large Aveda distributor, was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2014, she recalled a friend who had used cold cap therapy as a part of her treatment. Deborah knew the emotional boost of keeping her hair would help her endure the cancer treatments, so she did cold cap therapy during her chemo, and it worked. The state we're in emotionally makes a huge impact on our physical health. Going through chemotherapy and being able to keep your hair is one less emotional trial you'll have to go through. It makes a difference in how you'll come through the treatment. So they've been used, like I said before, frequently overseas. And originally they had a hard time getting FDA approval. In fact, when that portion of that article was written, it still was not FDA approved. Since then it has been. But here's where the FDA had trouble approving it originally. They believed that if the cells were being restricted and not allowing the chemo to attack the hair follicles, that there was possibility of manifestation or the cancer spreading to other parts of the body, like hiding out and then spreading later kind of a thing. But after much research, they found that there's no more chance of someone who cold capped against someone who didn't cold cap having the cancer spread later. So the cold capping did not affect that once at all. I'm going to read a little more to you. At the Rapunzel Project, Nancy and co-founder Shirley Billigmeyer has worked to raise awareness within the medical community, but they kept hitting roadblocks. The oncology community had been very slow to get behind this because we live in a very litigious country. And when practices have yet to be FDA approved, it's very difficult for a lot of doctors to be openly supportive, even though they may quietly be supportive in the background. One of the main reasons the FDA was acting cautiously had to do with the belief that the cold caps could hinder chemotherapy's effectiveness. The thinking is that since the cold cap prevents hair follicles from receiving the full dose of chemotherapy, the client is at risk for primary metastasis, or the spread of the cancer to the scalp. However, Nancy notes 20 years of research conducted by Dr. Hope Rugo, professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco, indicates that there is only about a 2% chance of scalp metastasis with cold cap wearing breast cancer patients, a rate no greater than the non-cold cap using breast cancer patients. Now the cold cap therapy is FDA approved and being used more and more in chemo patients that are aware of the option. So I'm trying to spread this news so that other hairstylists will see this and offer their clients the information to go forward and to check into cold capping. It is offered. Like I said earlier in this video, I went through cancer, so did my daughter. I chose not to cold cap. Basically because I get migraines, and the thought of having basically an ice pack on my head for hours was way too uncomfortable thinking for me. And at my age, I didn't care if I lost my hair. I just figured I would wear wigs or deal with it. So it wasn't a problem. My daughter, however, was only 30 when she was diagnosed, and her hair is beautiful and she did not want to lose it. So she did opt for cold capping. It was an extra expense. Insurance didn't necessarily cover it. This was a few years ago, but she did keep almost all of her hair. She just got thin on top, but she was able to hide that, and she kept 90% of her hair, no problem. So it does work, and that's coming from people who have actually done it. Now, my daughter and I both happen to be hairstylists, and since we went through cancer in 2019 and 2020 back to back, we've really, our heart has really softened towards people going through radiation, chemo, things like that affect their appearance. And I really, truly believe that getting through those types of illnesses has a lot to do with your attitude and keeping positive. And if anything can be done to help along that attitude and that positive outlook, maybe it's the way you look. And the way you look sometimes affects the way you feel. So you could feel better too. So I would really encourage you that if you will be going through chemo or know a friend, look up the Rapunzel Project online, and I'll put the website here on the screen. And you can find out more about it, or ask your oncologist, because like I said, it is becoming more and more known and used here in the States. It's not a fringe therapy anymore. It's much more common. My daughter and I, after going through cancer, like I said, our heart softened towards this type of thing, and we both try to offer free or reduced services to those going through. Sometimes we'll just have the gal come in. A lot of times we get a call, "Can you shave my head?" And we'll have the woman come in. We'll do that for them. We'll give them a nice scalp massage, and and maybe a glass of wine, and just spend some time with them privately and let them talk. And because we've been through it, we understand. So I pray to the gods that nobody watching this will ever have to deal with it. But if you do, there are options to help you get through it. And I'm hoping it's helpful information. If you've enjoyed this video, it's been helpful or even informational, please like, share, and subscribe, because going forward, I want to offer more and more healthy hair tips. As we go into a healthier kind of phase in America, I think people are getting more and more understanding about the chemicals and things in our lives. I want to be able to offer options to people without them having to do the research. So until next time, have a great day.